continue banging on about times tables, you'll get very bored, because it's something that we just don't stop learning about. And it's funny, I was talking to Mrs. Rees-Jones, who's in with us at the moment. She's going to be doing a secondary degree in teaching, and I was saying that quite often people I know who teach secondary in the first few years notice how those skills have slipped, and we really want to make them embedded so that later on that they're always there accessible for them. I'll shush now.
So the mental maths side of it, as Helen says, so we'll do 3 days a week with timetabled in to start the day with 20 minutes of a mental maths session. So that may be working as a whole class, maybe working individually, in pairs. We'll make it all look lots of different, lots of varieties of doing it. We'll obviously do mental maths within the lessons as well, but we thought it was really important just to have 20 minutes 3 times a week just to really focus on those key skills. So obviously the concept of mental maths is, as the title says, being able to work out things in your head, or thinking about it rather than writing it down. Because even though when we did mental maths at the end of last term, we found that a lot of children were still trying to write it down on a whiteboard, even though it was the mental maths session. It's great that they know there are lots of written methods, but it's really important as well just to be able to answer those questions in their heads. It's also been expanded to being secure in the understanding of the maths concepts, solving problems and knowing how to do that in a logical and methodical way, and all the mental maths sessions will focus on that. Not very interesting, is it? I'm sorry. I'm trying to do a dance, so it's very more interesting. But no, we found that these sessions are really beneficial, really interesting. But thinking about that now, really useful and really beneficial to the children. So that's why we've kept it going this term, because we definitely saw a difference in the children's confidence as well. So we'll be keeping that up. I'll move on to science now. I'm going to do 2 units this term. So the first half term we're going to do forces in action. So we'll go up to half term, and then after half term we'll be doing more about dissolving. So the forces in action, we're going to start off this afternoon actually by looking into how we can see the effects of gravity. We're going to explore how the depth of a crater and amount of material scattered is dependent on the weight of the meteorite. We're going to get really stuck into that. We're then going to move on to looking at friction and how the different amount of friction varies with different objects and surfaces and how things move across each other. And they'll be able to use lots of different equipment. So we'll be using force meters to measure the amount of friction, as well being able to think about how to carry out an experiment fairly, thinking about fair testing, how we can gather our data and interpret it as well. We'll then move on to identify and explaining the effects of air resistance, and they will be creating their own parachutes to see how the size of the parachute affects how long it takes to fall. So you might have to borrow your stairs at some point there, Stuart. Then we'll then move on to water resistance. So we're going to carry out another investigation to find out how different shapes move in the water. And then finally we're going to think about using levers and pulleys and how the forces can have effects on those. Throughout this whole unit we'll be applying their data handling skills, which I'll be focusing on in maths as well, so it'll be nicely combined on a Thursday and a Friday. So producing line graphs, looking for patterns in the data, and making conclusions from that as well. So it should be a really nice unit and very interactive as well, very hands-on, very practical, which I think is how you should be doing science rather than being talked out the whole time. So that will be really nice. And then after half term, seems a long way away, but I'm sure it'll come around really quickly. We're going to talk more about dissolving. So we're going to look about how solids dissolve in water and some do not. Firstly, obviously understand what dissolving is. We're going to try, sinking and floating objects, seeing which ones do what. Using sieves, funnels, filters. Again, all very practical, very hands-on. We're going to then look about investigating when solutions evaporate, and making predictions on what might happen, recording the results, looking about solids dissolving in water, and then at the end we're going to plan and carry out an experiment to see how long artificial sweeteners take to dissolve. So again, through that they'll be applying their data handling skills as well, and producing more graphs. Like I say, it combines really nicely with our maths unit. So again, really nice practical unit that I'm sure they'll